resign the whip for this. You just say, I've done nothing wrong. The party's going to stand by me if you haven't done anything wrong. It's like basically a non-story that they've now turned into front page headlines. It's almost like they want to harm themselves. It is balmy.
So it seems like a little bit of a theatrical kind of thing that's going on here. Were they afraid that James was going to join Restore Britain? Quite possibly. I mean, Rupert and James sit together in the chamber quite often. And, you know, we are seeking to welcome a cross-party coalition of people who are genuinely concerned about the direction of this country, the way that it's been governed for the better part of 30 years.
Have Reform UK really thrown another one of its MPs under the bus for fraternising with the so-called enemy in Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib? Well, that is the suggestion ricocheting across the right of British politics this weekend after the extraordinary story of James McMurdock's COVID business dealings becoming headline news for the Sunday Times, even though the allegations themselves have been in the public domain for exactly a year. So this shock statement from Lee Anderson on Saturday afternoon had all the echoes of the botched reporting of Rupert to the police just 4 months earlier. So this was the statement from the party's chief whip, who said, I have today received a call from James McMurdock, who has advised me as chief whip that he has removed the party whip from himself, pending the outcome of an investigation into allegations that are likely to be published by a national newspaper. The allegations relate to business propriety during the pandemic and before he became an MP. At Reform UK, we take these matters very seriously, and James has agreed to cooperate in full with any investigation. We will not be commenting further at the moment. Now, some senior Reform UK sources have insisted to me over the weekend that while they absolutely did not want James to have to go, and Nigel Farage has become a major champion of his surprise MP, McMurdock is now in by-election territory, suggesting the party has given up on him returning to the fold. Now, in my opinion, for a party of 5, this feels pretty unnecessary and reckless. And even party, and let's be honest, Farage loyalists, including Alex Phillips, who will join Restore Britain's Charlie Downs shortly on the Superstar panel today, have been left completely aghast about this turn of events. Watch. Can you believe that more than half of you are watching this video but not subscribed? So please do me a huge favour, click the subscribe button now, turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to all of our brand new Outspoken videos.
But it does strike me as a party that just doesn't seem to know how to do politics. First of all, there were 5, then there were 4, then there was 5 again. And now there's 4 again. We're talking about Reform and its cohort of MPs on the green benches because Rupert Lowe went, Sarah Poaching came in, but now James McMurdock is the latest person to resign the whip from the party voluntarily, apparently. Now, this comes down to an investigation by a journalist where apparently he was speaking off the record with a journalist who'd been digging around into businesses he set up during the pandemic that claimed certain loans. And apparently, you know, people are questioning why were these loans claimed and the businesses seemed brand new. What was going on? He says that actually all of this was above board. It's all fine. But while it's being investigated and before he can clear his name, he's going to resign the whip. Now, when I heard this yesterday, when I heard that McMurdock had gone, I was like, oh, God, what now? And I'm like, what is wrong with Reform that this, frankly, first of all, you know, have a press office where you tell your MPs you don't go having long-winded conversation with journalists that are off the record, OK? Get a grip. If you're going to be a professional party, get a grip of your press office. And secondly, you don't resign the whip for this. You just say, I've done nothing wrong. The party's going to stand by me if you haven't done anything wrong. It's like basically a non-story that they've now turned into front page headlines. It's almost like they want to harm themselves. It is balmy.
So I've spent the weekend fielding calls from Reform insiders and outsiders, actually, to try and find out what is really going on here. What's critical to point out is that these allegations against McMurdock are not new, and he has released a statement insisting his business dealings have been reviewed and compliance was confirmed. As Basil the Great fast pointed out, this information regarding James McMurdock has been in the public domain for a year, and we're supposed to believe Reform have just found out about this now. Has James been thrown under the bus by Nigel? And look, this is the video, right? If you watch this now, this is the video that contains all of the allegations in the Sunday Times piece, it was being paraded around X in the days after McMurdock's shock election exactly a year ago, which, remember, no one in Reform UK expected, given he was an unvetted paper candidate. And you'll see all of the documentation. And as I say, everything that was in the Sunday Times at the weekend was all on X a year ago. So the question that I'm asking is, why now? Why has this happened now? Well, I am also told by Reform UK sources that there has been increasing concern within the party about McMurdock's ongoing closeness with the jettisoned MP Rupert Lowe in particular. You might remember that James had signed up to be on his critical and very important rape gang inquiry, and there were some fears within the party that he was also going to join Rupert's Restore Britain cross-party movement alongside other patriots like Susan Hall and David Starkey. Indeed, James has received public support over the weekend, but not from Nigel Farage or Richard Tice, but from Lowe, Habib and Howard Cox. Rupert Lowe posted on X, James has worked incredibly hard over the last year to represent his constituents in Parliament. I count him as a good friend. From my own experience with Reform, to say I have suspicions of his treatment is a severe understatement. Ben Habib explained, text I sent James McMurdock in April after he joined the rape gang inquiry. And this is the actual text Ben Habib says that he sent. Well done on joining the inquiry. As I'm sure you know, that will irritate Farage greatly. Be careful. My advice to all former reformers who fall out with Farage is to resign before he sacks and seeks to blacken their reputation. And Howard Cox added, I took Ben Habib's advice and left Reform too because of their threat of my expulsion, all because the party's leadership would not allow me to support Tommy Robinson's journalistic exposure of child rape gangs. For the record, I'm proud to be part of, quote, that lot. Now, I have to be honest with you, this is the biggest problem with the fact that Reform played silly buggers with Rupert Lowe, right? And reported him to the police based on false allegations, because now when there is a scandal that potentially could reputationally impact the party, they look like a bit of a mess. And many senior Tories and other high-profile figures who were once considering throwing their hat in with Reform have been less chastened by the current dramas. Some have suggested they still believe the party will implode. And the Tories are certainly cashing in, right? You would expect that, but they posted over the weekend Reform are perpetually in chaos and they only have 4 MPs. Imagine how bad it would be if they got the keys to number 10. But as Reform quickly shot back, George Freeman, Patrick Spencer, Owen Paterson, Rob Roberts, Chris Pincher, Crispin Blunt, Neil Parish, Matt Hancock. You've had 6 leaders in the last 8 years. I'd sit this one out. Perhaps the biggest problem, though, is that at the moment it feels like Reform's base is being left constantly disillusioned by Nigel Farage backing away from fighting in issues that really matter, from mass deportations to demographic change, and now even the issue of halal slaughter.
With non-stunned meat such as kosher and halal?
I don't like it.
Should it be banned?
I don't like it.
Should we only do it the traditional fashion in this country?
Do you know what, Nick? I think we've got to a point where the size of these communities is such that it's really quite difficult to do. We could ban it, but we would, if we were to ban it, we would bring this to the centre of national political debate for a very considerable period of time, with strong opinions on both sides, and that's fine. But I'm going to argue we've got more important, more urgent priorities.
But what are we going to fight for then? Come on, we've got to start fighting for something. Reform has been too cautious on every major issue, from policy like that to personnel like James McMurdock. Now, the Superstar panel. And it is brilliant to have the aforementioned Alex Phillips in the house alongside Charlie Downs. Congratulations, Charlie. First time you have been on since joining Restore Britain and being a big part of that movement. So seeing we heard from Alex in the digest, let's start with you, Charlie. Do you think there's funny business going on here with James McMurdock. Do you think there's a possibility that he has almost been thrown to the wolves by his own party because he was potentially going to join your movement? And do you know anything about that? Like, was he holding talks with Restore Britain?
Well, the timing is certainly conspicuous. I mean, as you said, Dan, it's no secret that Rupert and James have been close. James has been involved in the rape gang inquiry. And, you know, the grapevine suggests that he's been on the out with reform for some time. Now, I don't know James that well. I've met him once or twice and I've spoken to him a little bit, and he seems like a very decent man. He seems like a nice guy. And he, by all accounts, has been a very good constituency MP. He's been serving his constituents quite well. So this does beg the question as to why it's such a song and dance has been made about this story about him, which, as you said, the information was already in the public domain. So it seems like a little bit of a theatrical kind of thing that's going on here. Were they afraid that James was going to join Restore Britain? Quite possibly. I mean, Rupert and James sit together in the chamber quite often. And, you know, we are seeking to welcome a cross-party coalition of people who are genuinely concerned about the direction of this country, the way that it's been governed for the better part of 30 years. And James certainly falls into that category. James is a man who has entered politics, I think, quite unexpectedly, but has shown himself to be a very patriotic man, a guy who really cares about the future of this country. I mean, I think he has 5 children now, so he's got quite a good reason to care about the future of this country. And I don't think it's any secret that reform has not exactly been doing the hard yards when it comes to publishing policy and building a shadow cabinet and actually showing the electorate what it is they will do if and when they win power in 2029. Now, if their polling is anything to go by, that's looking quite likely. And yet we are seeing this kind of continuous inability to avoid controversy, this continuous inability to be professional and to show the electorate that they mean business. Now, insofar as we are concerned, we would still welcome James into Restore Britain. We would love to have him on board, as we would love to have any member of Reform UK on board. We would love to have any Conservative on board who is genuinely concerned about the future of this country. But I mean, you know, to come back to this story in particular, looks to me like James has been very badly treated. And I don't think he deserves it, quite frankly, because he seems like a genuinely decent guy.
But first, I want to talk to you about something really important because it affects every single one of us. Scammers, spammers, data thieves. These people, these criminals are everywhere and they're feeding off your personal information. You've seen the signs, endless junk emails, dodgy text messages, phone calls pretending to be your bank, your friend, even your own mother. And the thing is, right, this isn't just irritating, like it's not just really annoying when you get these calls, although believe me, it is. It's dangerous. So how did they get your private data in the first place? Well, there's a hidden industry of data brokers quietly collecting everything about you. Your phone number, address, job, even your health and financial records, and they are flogging it to the highest bidder. And it gets worse. If you Google your own name, chances are you'll find your personal details plastered across all sorts of dodgy websites without your permission. But here's the good news. Incogni, a service that I use and trust, has just launched a powerful new feature that takes your online privacy to the next level. It's called Custom Removals, and it's part of their unlimited plan. It's as close to having a digital bodyguard, that's how I put it, as you can get. And what it means is that you can point Incogni directly to any site that you find exposing your personal information, not just the usual data brokers. Their team of privacy experts will then go after these sites on your behalf to get your data removed. It's unlimited, it's personal, and it works. So please don't wait for the worst to happen. Go to Incogni, that's incogni.com/outspoken right now, and you will get 60% off the annual plan. That's incogni.com/outspoken for 60% off. You'll be shocked at how much of your life is out there and how quickly Incogni can take it back for you. I'm using the unlimited plan myself. I'd strongly urge you to do the same. Incogni.com/outspoken. Protect yourself, your family, and your future. But now, back to the show. Alex Phillips, people were really surprised. I mean, I was really surprised by what you had to say on Talk, not because I don't totally agree with every word that you said, but because I know this is a difficult situation for you in lots of ways, because of course you are an independent commentator, but you're very close to people in Reform UK, but you seem to be pretty tough on them about the handling of this story. What do you think is really going on here?
Dan, I don't have a clue what's going on. That's the point. I don't know. But what strikes me is something that was in the public domain for a year suddenly becomes a news story because Reform themselves have sort of put out that someone's resigning the whip. So I just question the logic in that. Either there's one of two things that could be going on here. Either there is a sort of degree of incompetence when it comes to how you manage situations and stories, you know, whether or not the whip is removed. You know, the suggestion was he did this voluntarily, whether or not that was necessary, depending on the stringency of the claims and what there is out there. And if it is sort of a little peccadillo or something that's easily solvable, that's been knocking about for a year, then why the drama? But actually, you know, I've reflected on this in the last 24 hours, thought long and hard about if this were the case and if he had committed what amounts to COVID fraud. I don't know if he has. Look, I've met James and I like him incredibly. But if he had been claiming loans for the company that he's not paid back in order to essentially garner money from what was a national crisis, then I'm furious and he should go. So I don't know. You know, my opinion on what the handling of this rests very much on the veracity of these allegations. And normally what tends to come to pass is a party might suspend a whip while things are being investigated, and when someone's name is cleared, it is restored. So I hope that is the case. Look, a lot of the media didn't really pick up on this anyway, as it turned out. I thought it'd be a bigger news story. So that sort of also makes me wonder whether or not there is anything to see here. Look, I don't know. It is just frustrating for somebody who, as I said, you know, I'm not involved with Reform, but of course I was in the Brexit Party. I was at one point involved in Reform. Before that, I was UKIP. A great many of my friends are in that political party. And I think it is essentially our greatest hope for the future. Look, all these other organisations, like, you know, Ben Habib's pointless party that's been set up is not going to suddenly be a silver bullet. It is going to poison the well. It's going to make life more difficult. It's an ego project. It should be scrapped. What Rupert Lowe is doing, however, I think is far more honourable because it's a policy-based project that has an open door to everybody. But it just, you know, it is just frustrating. Look, political parties have this. We've got Labour mired in a backbench rebellion and talks of who's going to replace Sir Keir Starmer. Is Rachel Reeves going to go? The Conservatives switch leader every 5 seconds and have constantly been riven by factions. It is kind of par for the course in politics, really. And I wish it weren't so. I hope what comes to pass with this is that there is an investigation, that James McMurdock is exonerated and he therefore goes back into the fold. That is what I sincerely hope for. And if
I hope for that too.
There's an investigation and he is found culpable of essentially swindling money from the taxpayer during COVID, when people like me, who's a freelancer, lost loads of money and are now being taxed to the hilt to try and prop up the huge debts that we amassed during that process, then, you know, yes, there deserves to be a punishment. I don't know. I rather hope it's the former. And if it's the former, I hope that actually what Reform has done is proven that they stand head and shoulders above their counterparts in actually acting in an honourable way and not trying to cover things up and not trying to bundle the skeletons back into the closet. But like you said, Dan, you know, there is so much sort of scepticism now after Rupert Lowe gate that people are just sort of thinking, oh, not again, please.
Yes.
But yeah, that's
because that's the thing. We are actually willing for Reform to succeed. Like I know that they get very angry with people like me, but we want Reform UK to succeed. We want Reform UK to do the right thing, to take the right policy approach. And look, I agree with you if he was swindling the money, but of course we live in a society where you're innocent until proven guilty. He has absolutely categorically denied the allegations in his statement on X. However, from speaking to sources close to Lee Anderson, the chief whip, it is very clear that they think this is going to end up in a by-election. And then, of course, you're in a situation where there will very easy for there to be a recall petition in these types of situations.
Yeah, I mean, look, they will know more than we do, Dan, won't
Yes.
they? That's the point. They will know more than we do, and perhaps they think that there is grounds to these allegations, and that's something that a year ago James might have said, oh, it's not a problem and I can answer to all of this, might not be the case. Because if it did transpire that he had taken tens of thousands of pounds from the UK taxpayer to shore up invented businesses, basically, without the intention of ever repaying the money, then that is fraud. That is downright fraud, and it's very serious, and it should lead to a by-election. Like I said, I hope there's been a misunderstanding. But either way, perhaps Reform have done the right thing by saying, while this investigation goes on, we will just sort of, remove the whip and let people get on with doing the work they need to do. It's just sad, really, because, like you said, we want to see political change in this country.
Yes, and of course, if there is a by-election, my prediction would be Reform would most likely storm it again. But the big question will be, who runs for Reform UK? Do they give that safe seat to Zia Youssef, which currently seems to be what's been promised, even though I'm told there are lots of party donors who are actually desperately pushing against that path and are privately urging Nigel Farage not to run Zia Youssef at the next by-election. The other key point, of course, is it would be the first opportunity for Ben Habib's Advance UK to actually put his money where his mouth is, stand a candidate, see how you go. And I should just note over the weekend that Ben Habib announced that Advance UK has hit 10,000 members. Of course, they're on target. It's still a push, but on target to get to 30,000 members. At that point, Ben Habib has promised to donate £100,000 of his own money and set up the party formally.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.